Live. All right, so it's 4 o'clock on Sunday, the 22nd of May, and it's another edition of TCRM Conversations with Isor Bassi. I'm pleased to welcome everyone who's joined in and those who will be joining in as we progress with the conversation. So the TCRM Conversation is an initiative of the Cross River movement, and the movement simply has, it has a very simple objective of, bringing together Cross Riverians and lovers of Cross River State and creating a platform for expression, a platform for people to shape the future of Cross River State. So in this edition of the conversation, we're focusing on governance and administration in 2023 and beyond. And even though the title actually sort of, in a way, narrows it down to Cross River State, but we're going to be making it broader because I think that, whatever it is that we can learn lessons from different parts of a country, and, it is pretty much the same sort of dynamics that play out across most of the country. So yeah, in our world today, governance matters for development, and statistically, societies with more effective and accountable institutions have been known to outperform those with, less sort of effective and accountable institutions, whether this is around economic growth or human development or social cohesion. So, we're going to be discussing this, and, I've got a wonderful, very experienced panel today, and I'll just go ahead and introduce them. This is not in any particular order. So we've got Kunle Lawal. Kunle is an entrepreneur, he's an idea generator, he's a politician, a TEDx speaker, and he's a patriot. And he considers his boundaries to be limitless and is focused on changing the Nigerian narrative, as far as political participation is concerned. And, it's with this tenacity that he currently serves as the executive director of the Electoral College Nigeria. So Kunle, it's nice to have you on. Secondly, we have Mr. Johnson Ebokpo, and Johnson is the Director General of the Cross River State Economic Summit Organization, which is an independent think tank organization that seeks to bring together the Cross River State government and other stakeholders to make Cross River State's economy one of the top 3 economies in Nigeria over the next 10 years. Next, we have Ogbene Ofoboche Naji, who is a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Economists of Nigeria and a firm believer in the actualization of a better Nigeria for all citizens. So Mrs. Naji is the MD CEO of ZoneUp, which is a social media and broadcasting new generation company that is poised to improve the stand of Nigerians in relation to governance and societal well-being. And finally, the last but not the least is Bobby Udo. And Bobby is a nation-building evangelist. He's an author and a growth mindset enthusiast. Now, through his website, bobbyudo.com, through his speaking engagements, publications, and conferences, Bobby equips Nigerians with a transformation mindset and the direction and focus and the tools to become nation builders. His book, Nation Building, How to Build a Sustained and Develop Nigeria, is the most comprehensive book on how to build Nigeria. And it's an essential handbook for nation builders. Bobby is fully committed to studying, practicing, and teaching and inspiring nation building in Nigeria. So, guys, it's nice to have you on this conversation.
Thank you so much.
All right, so you're welcome. I think I'm going to start with, let me play. So we usually send out correspondence to sort of get a feel for what people in Cross River State, mainly in Calabar, think about the topics that we're going to be conversing. So it's always nice to hear directly from from people on the street. So if you permit me, I'm going to just play a video.
Welcome back to the Cross River Movement. My name is Primaries. We're out here in the city of Calabar. We're here to get the opinions of the people of Cross River State, their expectation for governance and administration beyond 2023. Follow me, let's go.
Talking about Cross River State 2023 and beyond, I'm believing God that there will be improvement in our economy. The difficulties we're experiencing presently are as a result of the fall of the Naira. So as the Naira shows up value, we believe that the economy will improve and government will also create an enabling environment for the private sector to thrive.
Well, what the people desire is good governance. Good governance in terms of infrastructure provision, social welfare, provision of the basic necessities of life. However, going forward from what Ayade has done, I will encourage the next governor coming in to build on what Ayade has started. What he has basically done is to industrialize the state. The reason why people haven't started seeing what has been done is because the industries have not picked up fully.
I feel that the focus should actually be more on what the people need, aside from their bigger aspirations and bigger dreams. They should go to the field and understand what the people really need. In a state that his administration keeps boasting of doing a good work, I mean, what's the point of you doing such great work when your people cannot actually see it?
We say this Cross River like this, even the as it's supposed to be, because you see some other places, I know say no be everywhere good though, but some other places they develop like some kind of things where they happen for Cross River where we say no supposed to happen, and the government see they watch, they not take the action where they're supposed to take. So I believe say this 2023 election, I just pray say the person will go come, go fit and do better thing. Maybe say Cross River go still stand, because before people they always want to come Cross River, but now people they come out because of the way it is.
Coming up with policies, you're coming up with projects, but the end goal is to see that the people are satisfied and happy with that. So you should go to the field and find out that, okay, yes, the end goal has actually been achieved. That's the only way we can actually understand the term of finishing strong, because by the next time that the next administration wants to come in, the person might be left confused on if going for continuity in governance, or he will just be bent on doing something else that is totally different from what the people need, or listen to the people. So it goes just beyond for this year, it goes past the other next government that we would see in the state.
I know that the 2023 administration will come with its own program, but let us not leave the ones that have been built to become quite elephant projects. Let us encourage the ones that have been done, while we encourage the governor to build on to do what he intends to do.
That's all for this week. Hopefully we've learned one or two things, and see you all next week.
Thank you, Fubara Morris. Thank you to the volunteers of TCRM for the Vox Pop there. Okay, so guys, we're gonna just go straight into the conversation this afternoon, and I think this is one that I'm across to all the members of the panel, and I will probably start with, let me start with Kole. Kole, what is good governance? What is good governance?
Well, thank you very much, Yusuf, for that question. I think in Nigeria, we've become very emotional about what we term governance is. So if you don't even understand what governance is, you can't begin to engage or ask for what the governance is. So governance is, of course, the delivery of the delivery of the actions or execution of actions of the government, which leads, of course, to betterment of the economy or general welfare of citizens. Our problem in Nigeria is the inability by those in office and the electorate to directly make a difference between the two. So politics and political parties actually, or politics, is only a vehicle to reaching an elected office. What goes on after that is governance. And governance does not belong to any political party because, of course, everyone is sworn to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So there's no this state is this party. No. They might have won the seat, but no party. So good governance, of course, is a reflection of the kind of service elected office provides to the people of a state, constituency, country, or Nigeria in general, nation in general. Like I said earlier, you cannot understand good governance without understanding the way a country works, jurisdictions of offices, and then understanding how things should be. The problem we've always had in Nigeria, of course, is we try to deliver governance without consideration of the local government. Now, local government, of course, is the smallest unit of the executive. And if we do not care about local governments, which we, of course, consider the first handshake of democracy to the people, we will never get good governance right. Thank you very much.
Okay, Kunle, thanks very much for that. I think I'll just follow up on that question with on what you've said with the question which I'll direct to Bobby. How important is good governance? How important is it? So Kunle sort of told us what it is. How important, what's the difference in terms of the outcomes in society between good governance and poor governance? And if you wish to cite examples, feel free to do so.
Thanks. I'm glad that Kunle laid a critical foundation that we tend to miss out on in Nigeria, and that's politics and governance are two different things. The politics is a process of determining the actors that will lead in the governance space. But also, as we observe in our own infant democracy, I call it infant because though it's been 23 years, it's still infant compared to democracies that have been for decades and centuries. We're still trying to understand the politics that enables us choose the people that will get into good governance. At the end of the day, every human being wants to, on a day like this, have electricity in their house, watch the Premier League games that are going on right now. After that, have a nice dinner with their family, and a nice dinner, a well provided dinner with the drinks and everything, and then go to sleep at night with their eyes shut till morning, having a sound sleep, and waking up tomorrow Monday to get into their vehicles, which has been well maintained by well-trained mechanics, and drive on good roads with well-managed traffic to the office or to their businesses. They want to do all of that in an environment that is safe, that is secured, and drop the children in a school which is publicly funded, that is affordable, and provides qualitative education. And they want to come back home to that resident, which is in a good area where the rent is affordable, or a place where they're bought with affordable mortgage. So by telling that short story, everybody wants to live a life that is secured, that is peaceful, that can be future planned, and you can also raise the next generation who can think creatively about what they want to do and have opportunities within that environment to initiate, implement, and maximize such potential. Now, it is the actors in governance who are the people to provide that enabling environment for each citizen to be able to live that life, carry those dreams, and implement those dreams. So that's essentially good governance, that you have people who are in government who provide the enabling environment for citizens to maximize their potential. And in return, when the citizen does that, they contribute something towards the government to enable government to do even more through their taxes. So that's the summary. I just use the analogy to make it nice and simple. So in terms of bad governance, in the absence of the right actors with the right vision and the compassionate hand to deliver this, you have people who will struggle to watch the football game. We'll be running generators with the noises, and after that, we'll be wondering what we're having for dinner. We'll be concerned about sleep at night. The car that they're driving has been fixed so many times. So all around society, there are pains. Every area is an area of pain because the people in government have not provided the enabling environment to enable security, to enable education, to enable business, to enable values and ethics to thrive in that environment. So that's what you get when there's bad governance.
Okay, Bobby, thanks very much. You've described this, utopia. Your story was very interesting, and this, I think it was just about a week ago. I was talking with a friend in Port Harcourt, in River State, who just lives on the outskirts, and the person was saying to me that they haven't had light in a year. Clearly, the product of bad governance. Going by what you said. Ogbene, you're based in Port Harcourt. How do we bridge that gap, between where we are in terms of governance and, where we want to be? And I know that that's a very big question because there are different sort of roles and responsibilities, but it would just be good to hear your views. Okay, sorry, I was talking. I didn't realize that I was muted. But it looks like is Ogbene on?
Looks like she lost connection.
Okay, all right. So I'm sure she'll come back on. But Johnson, it's nice to have you on. I'd introduced you earlier. So maybe I'll throw that question at you. Bobby described this utopia, which is, very distant from the reality in Nigeria. How do you feel that we could go about bridging that gap in governance between sort of where we are now and where we want to be? And I know that this is a very big question and there are different roles and responsibilities, but it would be good to just get your views on that. Johnson, you need to unmute.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. Yeah, long time. I hope you can hear me.
I hear you clearly.
Okay. So I have good evening, everybody. I have listened to I think Kunle and Bobby, and it makes a lot of sense. Basically, for me, I think the focus is around building institutions. Because you measure good governance from how political actors are able to manage resources that are meant for the people. And the only way, for me, if you ask me, the only way to achieve good governance is to focus on strengthening institutions. The institutions of government are there. I always say to people that government does not exist in a vacuum. Government exists within laws. For everything that you see in government, there's a law that gives them the enablement. So the question is, why are we not implementing them the way they are supposed to be implemented? When we execute reforms, why don't we follow them through? So the question will be, is it possible that you can build institutions to drive these reforms devoid of too much interference, so that even if you have a bad player, let's say you have some bad people in the system still finds a way to run? So for me, that is the only way, else we'll be existing in the realm of idealism. And it doesn't work anywhere in the world. We just need to build systems. That's all. That's my submission.
Okay, Johnson, I think you've made a brilliant point. You've made a very brilliant point. And I think that in a society like ours in Nigeria, there's a lot of reliance on strong men rather than strong institutions. So we see the presence and the actions of a strong man, maybe in River State, for instance, but what happens, I mean, I'm not endorsing that style of governance by any chance, but I'm just saying, even if you have a strong man who is very dominant and is able to achieve certain things, what happens when that person moves on and someone else takes over? So Ben, it's nice to have you back. What is it how can we make our institutions less dependent on strong men and more dependent on strong institutions like Johnson has suggested?
Okay, thank you. As previous speakers, I got the basic idea. We're basically together. Everybody seems to have the same opinion about inclusion. So, and if you say we're going to be discussing how to implement, I think we do need more private partnerships. We need more of the private sector, people with that whole ideology that can bring it to life, not depending on the service sector on its own. Once you come into a service, I mean public service, in Nigeria, generally people have this feeling that it's like a no man's land. Everybody grab and go. It is not my thing. No ownership spirit. To make this work, I believe that we have people within our system who have run successful private businesses that we can use as a kind of yardstick to bring them into PPPs. With that, there must be some level of precedent that would lead us to believe they can actualize these implementation goals. The executives seem to have a challenge carrying out generally, because if you meet the average Nigerian on the street, what you hear from them is basically lack of trust. They're finding a way out. So you can't run away from what is yours. You can't dump your green passport. So orientation will only make us have hope and belief, but will not lead to the final solution, which is actually carrying out these reports and policies and communiques we've generated over the years with the numerous committees we've set up, all the governors and the governments and the different federal executive committees that keep coming up, bringing up stakeholders to decide, and at the end of the day, they come up with these amazing solutions. So every time we're talking about reports, what are we doing about them? And what we really need to do is to bring in, just to summarize what I earlier said, to bring in people with track records and then cement their performance with that of the government. We should also try and bring in like checkmating committees. I know that in some countries, we usually have like the checkers of the checkers. You need to have something like that so that you don't just go out there and then make a claim and everybody pays everybody and goes away. So we need to have that at all levels of governance. It's not just about the federal, the state, or that. Somebody mentioned, I think it was Pune who opened up this conversation with the idea of looking at the local government level. So that level of government is critical. But then when you look at the average Nigerian on the streets, look at his streets, just maybe by the way where he lives. What exactly are we doing on our own terms to ensure that we can even handle things within our powers? So some of the fault would actually be both ways if you want to look at it that way. I would say we all are to blame, but in the light of progressive thinking, we need to also bring in that ownership, that immediate action that you can take as a person to make the difference within your own space. Here, also, just to add to this, if you look at the popular thing that goes on, even in the States, you hear of establishments like schools and the rest of them doing fundraisers all the time. Why is that the case? because the total reliance on government is not exactly there. Some people don't even know who their president or prime minister or whoever is, literally, because they are used to handling things. So I'm not shoving the side of the government. I'm saying that governance must be more inclusive, must have more of our ownership spirit to enable us bring in tested and tried both companies and individuals that can bring these implementation processes to life.
Okay, Ogwene, thanks very much. And I'll read out a comment here, but I think your response would sort of, take us nicely into, maybe what role can we play in sort of facilitating better governance as citizens, but we'll get to that. Otueno says, I keep hearing of building institutions. Can someone break down in a few practical steps what this entails? And I'm a bit unclear about this concept of building institutions. Bobby, you've written a book on nation building, so maybe I'll address this question at you. So if you can just tell us what these strong institutions are and how we can build them. And then are there key institutions that need to be really solid for society to work better? And if they are, what are those institutions?
Okay. Thanks, Otu, for a critical question. We like talking about institutions in Nigeria. And it always baffles me because when we say we have to build strong institutions, I ask, who's going to build it? Because it's not like a product you go to China and you build and ship it down to Nigeria. It is something that exists in Nigeria that is built by Nigerians. So institutions are being built, but the reality is that Nigerians are building the institution according to the materials they have. So we are building the police, we are building the judiciary, we are building the educational sector, we are building the civil service according to the materials we have right now. And that material is me, myself, and I. I'm not thinking about a nation, I'm thinking about myself as a nation. So everything I do is led by myself. So each time I'm in those organizations, I am thinking about myself, and in so doing, I'm building that institution. Now, if we shift the mindset and say we begin to have a critical mass of citizens who are not thinking about me, my wife or husband and children, and I'm thinking in a broader sense, I'm thinking about the community, I'm thinking, having an outlook of what 20, 30 years will be like, whether I'm here or not. Then when I go into the judiciary and I have a case before me, I am thinking, what will my decision do? What effect will it have in 20 and 30 years? I will act differently. The policies are there, the laws are there, but what I will do would differ, and my actions will also showcase the values I come with. In so doing, I build a culture in that environment. That culture means that not only myself will I take that decision according to my values, the people who walk alongside me, the people who walk underneath me, we will build that culture, which means whether I'm on holidays or whether I leave that office or I'm transferred to somewhere else. For example, let's be practical. I'm the police commissioner for Cross River State. I build a certain culture, and in that culture, we don't receive bill money. And this is something I had been noted for years before I come. And this is the important thing about institution. It needs strong men to build strong institution. What we have had in Nigeria is strong men with wrong values. We need strong men with strong values. So if I'm a police commissioner, before I come there, I was a DCP somewhere else, I was an ACP somewhere else, assistant commissioner, deputy, and before I arrive in Calabar to take on my post, my reputation will come there that these are the things this man does wherever he goes to. So by the time I come there, and maybe 2 years or 3 years, when I leave, there is some element of that culture that in this place we don't take bail money, in this place we don't have checkpoints, in this place we dress well, we maintain our police stations, we go out and we interact with the people, we share with them the laws of the land, we get feedback from them, we have police community relation community that is effective. By so doing, that place would keep that culture going even when I'm transferred or I've retired. that is now a strong institution with the right values. We have strong institutions with the wrong values. So what we're talking about is strong institution with the right values. It is initiated by one man, it is implemented by one man, but the culture is inculcated and carried on and sustained by others. And these things can be replicated in other sectors.
Yeah, thanks very much, Bobby, for that. I do wonder whether the fact that we rely so strongly and so heavily on, strong men rather than strong individuals is something cultural. And I mean, I say this bearing in mind that there are so many different cultures across Nigeria, but can we really build those institutions and sustain them going forward? Wouldn't there always be that cultural element that makes us defer to the strong man? If we take Cross River State, for example, we've had, I think the Fourth Republic is 23 years now. We've had 3 different governors, and those who have followed the history of the state, Governor Duke came, laid some sort of a foundation. Lele Moke, he was known to be a very due process oriented person. And then, we have, a governor in the last 7 years, and this is a non-partisan platform. But the feedback that you get, and I talk to people all the time, across different political divides, it just seems as if due process has been thrown out of the window, and there's just the dominance of one strong man. So even though I understand what you're saying, in a way, it's not so comforting when you see the trajectory of a state like Cross River, for example. I don't know if you want to maybe respond further to that, Bobby.
Yeah, I mean, culturally, we're dealing with, remember, this democracy we've inherited is a Western democracy, and we're trying to put strongholds or foundations or framework into an African setting. And the major actors of this democracy were Western trained. But you also have to remember that the work of building a democracy was interrupted in 1966 by the military. The military boys who did not enjoy the Western education. Rather, they were educated according to military culture. So in a journey to instituting a democracy where we listened to a communal voice, and it wasn't exactly uncommon to us. We had communities that did that. But we had a military administration that ruled, not governed, ruled us for a long time. And in so doing, instituted the military way of doing things. The military rule is a strong man. The general is a general. Whatever he says is the law. So what we've been trying to do is, over time, trying to take out the military way of doing things and bring in a democratic way of doing things. But we also have to remember the thing with culture is that you and I can be carrying a certain culture, but we won't know it until we're given power. Then we showcase that culture that we're carrying. Most Nigerians who are 35 and above were born into a military administration, were in an education where the military was governing. Their parents had the military mindset, their teachers had the military mindset, the university had the military mindset, and then you come out to the society, you are already formed that way. The younger generation are slightly different. So for me as a nation builder, I'm always asking myself in my private life, as a husband, as a father, as a member of my family, first, how am I acting like the military man in order for me to act differently out there? So we have to acknowledge the role of the military rule in our lives. But I'm still saying this, that the journey from where we are right now, because we're in a very bad place, to where we want to go, still requires strong men with strong values, strong good values, because the journey to where we need to go is filled with a lot of potholes and massive roadblocks. So unless we have people who are sacrificial in their living, we are not going to get there. Many of us, and in my nation building work, have heard Nigerians share brilliant ideas. But to get on the street, to begin day one, begin week 2, begin month 3, year 4, has been the hard part. because a bit of a resistance from the strong men with wrong values, a bit resistant, people just pack their load and travel jackpass, we say in Lagos.
Thanks very much. Okay, so please feel free, if you're on this conversation, if you've got a question or a comment to make, type it in the chat, or you can indicate by, just using the reactions icon there in Zoom, as David Etim has done. So I'm going to bring David, I'm going to give David the opportunity to make a comment or ask a question, after which I will go to Kunle. And Kunle, just to prepare you, so we're entering, this is a season of intense politicking, and we know that the primaries are meant to be taking place within the next week. I would be interested in hearing your opinion, your views on how citizens may influence the outcome of primaries. So I'll come to you on that, Kunle, but let's go. David, please, if you can unmute yourself. And
thank you very much, Esau. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello. Okay, excellent. I just want to contribute on this issue of institutions. Now, and in the beauty of what I'm about to say is that it's happening in this time. Now, in 99 of its total indices were ahead of Lagos State. Okay.
David, sorry, your audio isn't very clear.
From
I don't know if you're able to.
99
Okay, so David, unfortunately, we can't.
I think it's 2000.
David, unfortunately, we can't hear you. So I'm gonna mute you and just give you the opportunity to maybe work on your audio.
Adopt all the developmental, World Bank documentation. Well,
okay, I think David's dropped off. Okay, Kunle, are you there? If you can address the question that I asked earlier. So this is the season of the primaries. The primaries typically, is done within the party. What is it that we could do or could have done? Because, the argument could be that it's a bit late for that anyway. But what is it that we could do to, influence the, the outcome of primaries? Is Kunle there, or has Kunle dropped off? Okay. Looks as if Kunle might have dropped off. Johnson, I don't know, do you want to take that? Do you want to take that? Just give us your views on.
Well, there are so many factors that influence the outcome of primaries. There are so many considerations that political parties put to the fore in determining who should be the candidate. And 90% of the time, especially where we are in Nigeria now, the issues are usually around electability, your appeal to the grassroots. And so, and you and I know that the grassroots itself, what we term the grassroots, is some kind of undefined space, because even the people in the grassroots don't know what they want. So what you have are usually people who are able to build social capital around giving peanuts and being charitable at that level. And those are the kind of people that are termed popular, you understand? But what I think we can do is what we're doing now, engaging and talking. I give you a little bit of a story. As a young banker then in Lagos, I was opportuned to see a copy of the Lagos Eco Blueprint, okay? This was as far back as, I think 2003 or 4, thereabouts. And I remember that one of those days I was doing marketing somewhere in Agege, and I was marketing a ballet. You will not believe that in the course of my marketing, this I will never forget this. A ballet was talking to me about the Lagos blueprint. They knew where somebody, a traditional chief, knew where they were going to be in 10 years from where we were. And to be frank with you, everything he said is coming to fruition. Do you understand? So in all that has happened, the gap is usually the people. The gap is usually the people. So it's good that we're having this kind of conversations. We started something in Cross River Economic Summit Organization. I'm sure you know the organization we formed. And the structure of the organization was formed around collaborating with government as a first partner, and understanding that reforms take time. The efficiencies you develop in working in the private sector may not necessarily apply when you come and work in government, because the reward system is different. You have to have a broad understanding of how things work, and to understand that you have to be patient. Government is usually a continuum, okay? So the question is, what do we do to influence the thinking of political parties? We need to first start talking to ourselves. As private sector players, as civil society, we need to have a forum where we talk to ourselves, and we need to stop making government the enemy, because government is you and I. Government has a fiduciary responsibility towards its members. It's like a club. You understand? It holds something in trust for you. So we are all part of government. So the private sector needs to get to a point where it begins to understand the dynamics of reforms and how it impacts on inclusive prosperity. The first thing, like I said, is having these conversations. Very, very important. It means that the awareness is beginning to build up. The next thing is understanding that we must collaborate with government. You cannot, Ngozi Iweala was very clear, we can talk and talk and talk. Until we begin to collaborate, we cannot make change. And you know, there's this wrong misconception that when technocrats get into government, they are not able to make impact because of the Nigerian factor. The truth is that more technocrats need to come in to the system, because when that happens, they are able to put their voices together and pull and be more impactful. You understand? And drive these reforms and educate other people. You understand? Another thing that we have to constantly and consciously advocate for is education, the ability for people to think, because productivity is from learning. So we have a challenge. So this discussion is going to continue for the next 25 to 30 years, because we are going to be talking about a building blocks of productivity. And these building blocks will be layered on the emergence of critical thinkers. And so there's a lot of work to do. So like I said, I will go back again. The first thing, one, we start talking to ourselves. The next thing, we seek for means and ways to collaborate with the government, okay? And then the next thing will be to focus on advocating around better basic education. When you do that, when you speak, political parties will listen to you. Because in the course of all this work, you will build relationships, you will build networks. The politicians will know you. So that at that time, when you say, oh, this is the kind of person we want, the political parties will begin to consider that. You understand what I'm saying? I tell you, the experience we have had in Creso, to a large extent, we have started the process of influencing the thinking of political actors within the key political parties. All that needs to happen is that you must be willing to be a collaborator. So if you're considering aspirants, consider the ones that are willing to, I'm sure you listen to the current narrative. Everybody is talking about our geopolitical reality as a state, which is agriculture. That's because we have had to push and push via collaboration and education.
So I don't want to speak too much, but these are ways, and we cannot be looking for quick fixes. These things will take time. So the Cross River movement has started talking. We need to come together and we need to have a plan. And we need to get to a point where we can get the political actors to sit with stakeholders and develop long-term plans like was done in Lagos State. So I have answered a couple of questions here. The questions around institutions, they are not built in the air, they are built around people. So we shouldn't dwell too much on the discussion on strong men or strong women. We can make progress. I'm sure in the course of this discussion, we would see where this progress has been made and why we need reforms, you understand, and the impact those reforms will have on our economy. Thank you.
Johnson, thank you very much. Very eloquently addressed. Ogbene, let me come to you. So we're still talking about the role of citizens in governance. And there's this saying that we get the governments that we deserve. We often hear that we get the governments that we deserve. And an example that someone cited just within the last week is so ASU's been on strike because the elected officials and appointees of government are not addressing certain needs. But the very people who, in some cases, conspired to return those elected politicians are vice chancellors and professors themselves, as electoral returning officers. So there's that saying, you get the government that you deserve. What is it that we can do to change that? Oftentimes politicians, the suitability of a politician for an office is very often, I hear this, it may not be everywhere, but in Cross River State is a very dominant thought. Oh, this one is stingy. This one, doesn't give anything. Oh, this one is very generous. And when they talk about generosity, they're actually talking about how well he responded to when I couldn't pay school fees for my child. Did he assist me when I was burying my mom? How do we overcome that mindset in order to get to the point where, an elected government official is held accountable for the right things?
Well, the fact is that continuity has always been a challenge across the country. Even outside of Cross River, in River State is well known, the issue of continuity in governance. You may have your plan set aside, and even you can ring it in the ears of everyone. You can have series of meetings or any other version of gatherings in your institutions. And at the end of the day, if the people you are trying to reach out to are still at the level of hand to mouth, it causes a problem. You mentioned something about someone talking about, you gave my child something or school fees, or that is a sign of the level of degradation in a standard of living in the country, which means you are talking about change in many years and the patience of the people who are worn out. The masses are not patient because they are currently going through something that if we go into that now, we're going to talk a lot about it. The issue of how much we're actually being paid across the states and federal government. So if you look at, we're still talking 30,000 up till now and things like that. That's less than $100 per month. So there you go. So that such a situation brings about the question you ask, how do you change this? You said, okay, for me, bringing it to life. If you look at an institution like ASU is a body that is struggling to survive. The government handling a lot of things for them, still bearing in on their costs and all of that, makes them to be dependent. If we were to have a proposition whereby these federal institutions would have more control in their own management, their own fundraising, their own. I maintain that because if you look at the foreign university, it's for the bourgeois. You know, you discover that most people might say, okay, I want to go to school. I stop at high school. I'm not proposing that people stop at high school, secondary school, but the truth is that higher level of education is something that is done like it is written, higher. It's not that you must go and pay 50,000, 100,000. At the end of the day, you're getting to stay for 10 years, struggling to study a course of 4 years. You know, so the only way to change some of these things is to push some of the responsibility. We're talking about inclusion since we started. If the people have a stake directly, I know that in my own case, I'm coming in and I want this and that in place. So I just sit there and I bring out all my things and I'm waiting for the federal government to provide. But if I know that I'm going to be paying, okay, the school fees, I'm not also advocating for us to have crazy school fees and stuff, but I am saying it's not reasonable for us to understand the economic situation when we are fully dependent on oil and on all of this. And we are not even up to the stage where other means of survival have come into play at the national level, at the macro level. You now bring in the issue of people paying their school fees when they can barely eat in the house. So in terms of this line of thought, ASU is just an example. Power must be redirected to those who have direct experiences in their various fields. If, for example, it's not a school, you can bring it down to any other level of government. You can talk about even someone like what Johnson was saying. People need to understand the difference between the government way of running and then that of the private sector. Truly, there's a need for that because we make demands and we expect immediate change. But if a previous government comes up and says, let's do a kidnapper, okay, and the next one comes and says, this is not really my priority. I don't know what we're really going to be doing with our capital. I don't know if you understand me. The government comes up, spends so much money on the monorail, for example, and the next one comes up and says that's not critical. So this is more or less a waste of resources. While people are out there struggling to just survive, someone else is just bringing up new programs. They say it is in line with the 10-year plan or 20-year plan, Vision 2020, Vision 2050. At the end of the day, you are producing waste. So continuity will depend on the voice of the people. Indeed, engagement is important. However, I would say you need more private and public partnerships so that it will lead to the inclusion, being that the people need to have that feel. They need to be able to participate at a level that will be both beneficial. Culture shock is what somebody brought up earlier, and I want to relate it to answering this question. Yes, we are still struggling to understand why we are running a foreign government in our own local setting. American government, stroke. Somebody brought that up in one other conversation, like an American stroke, British government in Nigeria or Africa. So when you go into all that, you want to go back to the basics and start all over again. It takes time. So what I would propose to respond to you is basically we go back to the drawing board and we begin to bring in our fellow people within our community, and then we bring it in also at the public level. That should be able to help us to improve the setting when it comes to institutional management. These are the services and the masses.
Okay, Obene, thank you very much for your response. We've got a couple of hands up, but before I invite Eldred Ita, I'll just read out a couple of comments that have been made in the last few minutes. So Elizabeth Edu says, putting the right laws, such as compelling all public office holders to utilize public facilities, such as schools, hospitals, etc., will go a long way in fixing the state. Usenetin says, are there legal frameworks for the citizens to take legal action against politicians and public office holders for corruption and or policies made out of impunity that have negatively impacted on their well-being, so that it serves as a deterrent to future office holders? So that's a very interesting one. Maybe we need to be developing a culture around taking legal action. And I think this came up in a conversation I was having with, I think it was David Atom, and we said, why, is there any reason why residents in Calabar cannot take a class action lawsuit against the power holding company? You know, there hasn't been light in the city for over a month. So maybe this is something interesting that you know, citizens can adopt, you know, as a means of holding accountable institutions that, you know, should be delivering service. Eldred Ita, so if you can unmute and go ahead, please, and make your comment, or if you want to ask a question.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now.
Can you hear me? My questions are, number one, talking about the institution. I grew up to discover that there's a law called the law of madness. And that law states that you do the same thing repeatedly and expect a different result. If you look at the political institution, if you look at the school, if you look at the judiciary and any other institution, you just see that for the past 30 years, things have been going on the same trend. Things have been going on the same trend. Things have been going on the same trend. Why? Because few people will come and tell you idea without a vision. Someone can give you an idea, but it doesn't have a vision. As long as you don't have a vision, that thing cannot be materialized. For example, okay, let's look at the current government. When it came in with a very good vision, but no idea. With a very good idea, but no vision. The Bible says where there is no vision, the people cast off strength. So let us look at for people that not only give us the idea, what is their vision? What have they done before? What can you see them? What legacy have they done? What impact have they done in the little that they can handle? So that by giving them opportunity, we know that in the next 20 years, they can move this state to a certain point. Now, 16 years ago, we have a good road. And expecting probably by now, every other road will be okay. But now we are having the worst road. One thing that government should be responsible for is to give us a good road, is to give us a good water, and to give us electricity. Even the water that was functionable, none of them are functionable again. So it forced people to drill borehole. The electricity, no lights. The road, no road. There's no government that can provide employment. Everybody, anybody will come and will say, I want to provide employment. It's not the duty of government to provide employment. It is the duty of government to provide a conducive environment for investors to thrive. Once investors can thrive, those one can provide employment for the citizenry. That's number one. Number two, any government that does not function on industrialization is a failed government. Because so many people does not know the definition of industrialization. If you know the definition of industrialization, then you will know that where you are, you look at the state. What is the state needed? What can we provide in the state that can provide employment? Then we get the materials and we get things work than ordering things from other states and be paying. It's not good. Because if industrialization is focused, then you will not really get the importance of agriculture. Thank you.
Okay, Eldred, thanks very much. Maybe I'll ask you a question because I believe you're Cross Riverian, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things that the current administration has, has made the most noise about, one of the things that they've judged to be, one of their points of success is industrialization.
I can't hear you. Is that one of the things that is their success?
No, yes, one of the things that this administration points to as, something that they've succeeded at doing is industrializing the state. Do you think that the government has industrialized the state? And if you do, Tell us why, and if you don't, give us your reason.
So I don't agree that the government has industrialized the state. What is industrialization? There's no precise definition of industrialization. There's no precise definition of industrialization.
Okay,
but
so
however,
industrialization, okay, so like we can say, okay, if the state has been sufficiently industrialized, it will lead to a lot of job creation opportunities.
Yeah, that's what I want to tell you, that there's no precise definition of industrialization. But however, when industrialization is broadly conceived, you can view it as a development of industry without relegating the importance of agriculture. That's a precise definition of industrialization. Okay, having defined industrialization this way, look at the state. Is it coincide with my definition?
Okay, thank you, Eldred. Nice having you. Okay, Johnson, I believe you wanted to respond to the point raised about ASU. Please go ahead and do that. And Johnson, sorry, you're muted, by the way. And John Atsu, I'll come to you after this. If anybody has any comment or question that they would like to ask or make, use the reactions icon, please, to indicate, or you can, if you want to just type your message in the chat, that's fine. I can read it out as well. Johnson, over to you, please.
Okay. I don't know if it is belated because so many things have been said, but I just wanted to say that the challenge around ASU, the challenge is structural. And if you were to bring reforms, it will be a difficult one. This is because of the nature of our diversity. We haven't been able to use it to good effect. Would they call it the religious, tribal? There are a couple of issues that would affect the implementation of these reforms. However, like Bobby had said, we need, well, if you want to call them, strong men with strong values that are ready to put their feet on the ground and reform. But I think for me, if you ask me, and one of the reasons why I accepted to be on this panel is that I think we've gotten to a point where the subnationals need to look inwards, and that's what I'm interested in. I know that there are, in terms of legal frameworks, there are a couple of issues around how the relationship between the national and subnational governments, but there's always a way of going around all those things. I think the focus should be on reforming what we have. We have some level of control. There's control over basic education. If we change the pedagogy, they call it. If we change a couple of those things, if we can make teachers train better, you understand, change the mode of learning, because you can do all of that within the basic education level. And then you begin to reform your state universities. You can create centers of excellence and look at compensation. Higher education is not cheap, just like Mrs. Naji had said. It's not for everybody. But the thing is, productivity is not at that level. Even from primary school, basic education, when you leave primary school, you can think. And if you can think, you can see problems and think of ways to solve them. That's the beginning of productivity. So I think we should look at Cross River State. The topic I saw was Cross River State governance, because if you want to look at the issues around Nigeria's federation, we will talk and talk and talk, and we will not be able to make any progress. They are depressing. So that's just what I wanted to say, because ASU itself knows that there are fundamental challenges. If they decide to give the universities autonomy, I can tell you that a lot of people will not find themselves in the school system. The schools themselves will prune down the number of departments and blah, blah, blah. So it's a discussion for another day. But the question is, within the subnational entity, what can you control? How can you boost productivity that reflects your local geopolitical reality? That is what we haven't done over the past 30 years. And that's why we are where we are. And nobody says that growth must happen automatically. Growth is progressive. Once an initiative is sustainable, once the foundation of an initiative
is sure. An ecosystem will be built from it, whether you're a strong man or not a strong man. If I am selling akara, there is need for me to buy waterproof now. Would anybody stop me from buying waterproof? Somebody will have to produce waterproof for me. Once, like I said, once the foundation of an initiative is on a solid foundation, an ecosystem will evolve from it. Within that ecosystem, there will be many value chains servicing themselves. That is what I think is the missing link. And the last speaker spoke about, what does the common man want? They want jobs. So there are usually two ways. Lagos has an alternative economy that evolves around the water. Everything as it supports the water, other chains of value are needed. So the knowledge economy is needed. There's a building economy, the real estate economy is needed. There's also much needed to service that water economy. The question is, Cross River, what do you have? What do you have to offer Nigeria? And what are the various value chains that can help you offer that thing that you have for Nigeria? So if in 1999, we built solid foundations, we won't be having these discussions. So let us admit that, yes, we may have made mistakes. So how can we now move forward from 2023? And this is why it is imminent that the private sector increase a do or die. Because if you look at your gearing, your leveraging as a state, we are in trouble. The state is in a big mess. One, because of outstanding domestic and external loan obligations. So those receipts that we used to receive in the past, they are threatened, whether at bilateral or multilateral level, not even the local domestic stock. There are cases in court. So right now, Cross River is at the crossroads. It's either we are productive or we die. That's just where we are.
Joseph, let me ask, because you said that if in 1999 we had built the right, I believe you used the word structures, we wouldn't be where we are now. But someone else could argue and say, well, between 1999 and, for a period of over the last 23 years, we did build the right structures to some extent. And those led to Cross River State being maybe renowned for one or two things across all the states in Nigeria. We talk about structure, we built a world-class structure that would be the envy of, anywhere in sub-Saharan Africa. So to an extent, we did do the right thing. So why do we find ourselves where we are now?
I said from the onset that when a foundation is on a sure footing, it will sustain itself. I will not discountenance what previous governments had done. Okay, I will not discount it. Putting Cross River State on the map wasn't a bad idea. But the question is, you see, did we even really have to be on any map? Do you understand?
Well, you
because
could
what
argue
the outcome
people to be talking about you and wanting to come to your
let me say something. The outcome is usually about putting money in people's pockets. Now, Lagos State did not look to pursue people, or what they did was to look inwards and looked at their reality and focused on it. I give you an example. Nothing is wrong with what the players in 1999 up to date have done. What we just need to do is to draw a proper roadmap. If in 1999 we had focused on what mattered the most to us, you have a map of a state. You look at it, it will tell you 21,000 something square kilometers of land. Much of it is arable, very fertile. And you have different climatic, this is one state where you have a tropical rainforest, and then you have the temperate region, and over large acres of land. Do you understand? And if you really, really look at it, what is the first form of productivity is land. You need to eat. You need to eat, and you have it in excess. If we had focused on one, developing agriculture, by now we would have had a framework or a legal framework for some type of agro value chain transformational program. Okay, by now we would have taken the issues of land titling very, very seriously. Do you understand? By now we would have advanced in the manner in which land is used, land is allocated, and land is titled or land is mapped. You know, one thing always leads to another. When you begin to, you have an ecosystem, you begin to produce something, people will buy it now. You need, there's always a market. People come all the way from Cameroon to Ebonyi State to buy pigs. Do you know where they go to? In some communities, they come all the way from, they pass through, they go to buy pigs. When they get to the border, they put it on a machine and get to and move to their communities. You see, have produce value, and there's always going to be a market. Once you have value, there will be a market. So if we had focused on what mattered the most, by today, when you're talking about real estate development, you're talking about all these things, you would have had the human capital from within Cross River State to finance and sustain those initiatives. So if you were doing TINAPA in 2023 and you had focused on agriculture within the last 20 years, you have enough Cross Riverians that can fund and can patronize those kind of places. And when you're doing a sustainability analysis, when you're approaching your lenders can see that indeed this business is sustainable. You don't need to wait for tourists or all those kind of people to come. Even the local economy can support this kind of institutions.
Okay.
I live in Port Harcourt.
Thank you. Thanks. I get your point, and very valid points, and I agree with you 100% on agriculture being a key area to drive development.
I mean, agriculture and any other thing that exists within our reality.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like the maritime economy. I'm happy that David Etum is here.
One of the things, I'm happy. Yes, we've had those conversations. David Etum is very eloquent.
Yes.
On West African, corridor connecting, the countries across.
The Gulf of Guinea initiative, yes, and these are subnational interventions. Yeah. So you need to, you will collaborate with the federal government, but you must understand that you yourself need to look inward, and it is not easy. David will tell you what they have gone through. We worked together on the Gulf of Guinea initiative, so it's not a walk in the park, but it is achievable. Yeah. But you must have the understanding beyond rhetorics, beyond idealism. We need to tell ourselves, and that is why you and I need to make sure that we are crying and shouting and saying, look, incoming political players exist within our reality.
And Johnson, that is exactly what the Cross River movement is doing. And we're of course, we're working on that partnership with Creso as well. So we'll take that. Yes. But permit me, John Atsu, his hand has been up for a while. But Atsu, if you can unmute yourself, please, and make your contribution.
Yes, thank you so much. So it's nice to see you. And to everyone on the panel, it's been very informative. I just want to say a few things. In my own personal experiencing and journey so far, I've become so many things. I think I started out as an optimist, and I've turned around full circle, and I would like to think I'm now more a realist than anything else. I understand now the importance of data, of information, and how to apply that data. So you can come here and tell me all sorts of nice stories, all sorts of fancy ideas. When I look at the data coming out of that area, I'll know if your talk matches your action. So going back to governance and education, I want to talk a little bit about that, education enlightenment. I don't think that any of us here, if we were in that crowd who recently there was a mob action killing somebody or some people in Nigeria, we would do that. The reason we won't do that is because we have education, we're enlightened, we're able to critically think, we can think for ourselves. Now, a lot of Nigerians don't have that. And that is because the educational system collapsed a long time ago. We haven't come to terms with that. We have failed to address that matter head on. When was the last time we had a review of our educational program, of the policies, of the calendar, of the syllabuses in our schools? What are we teaching our people, and how are we delivering that knowledge as well. All that has collapsed, and that's the truth. So year after year, you are churning out so-called graduates who are misfits in society. They are unable to think for themselves. They are unable to gain any skills. They are unable to apply any skills, and of course, enhance society. So that's one, And then again, more than that, I'm also looking at the data from government. How much of GDP is government spending on education? That's all I need to know if a country is planning. When I look at the GDP and how much you're spending on education, I'll know if you're serious or not. Because as bad as things are, Esau and all of you, it's not impossible to fix. All you need to do is say, oh, hey, wait a minute, everything is bad. What do we do? How do we do it? Right? And it is from those indices that I can tell if Nigeria has a plan to get out of where we are. And I'm sorry to say, but as of this minute, there isn't such a plan. Because I'll be looking at what kind of graduates you are churning out in what type of schools, so that I can now say, okay, you know what, everybody we have right now, I'm sorry, they don't quite, but we can be optimistic and say, okay, let us be definite and say in the next 20 years, we will change this, we'll change this, we'll change that. We'll spend this amount, and this is the kind of quality of graduates we're going to get that can fit and compete in the society that we have today. There's big data, there's all sorts of issues going on. That's one other thing. I'm trying to say so many things in a very short period of time. And then there's also this issue about governance and continuity. I don't agree. That's the story we use to deceive ourselves. We say government is a continuum, but every different administration comes with his own ideas and policies and just throws away that of the last one, as though it is personal money. This is money of the people that has been spent on a so-called project. I come in as the next God. I say, I want to do my own. Who said I have such power? To throw away, to fit, and we don't have money, we are wasting. So we need to start finding ways that we can turn out laws, right? And enforce those laws that make leaders responsible, right? That is how government can be continued. If I'm responsible for the action of my predecessor, right, in terms of implementing a plan, then I will act a little with a bit more caution. So I'm sorry to say, but generally, we are in a very bad place. It's the truth. And until we identify and agree that we're in the bad place, all these stories and nice language, oh, when I come, I will do this, it's not true. It's not possible. Look at the data. And that's what people need to understand. I'm done with sensationalism, with emotion, with all these highfalutin optimism. I want to be a realist. I want to look at the data, and I want to analyze the data, and I will now know if truly we are serious. Now, leaders have the power and the opportunity and the privilege to help us position us in that direction. This is where this movement can also help. How do we then influence the people who will now select these leaders? You and I know, for the most part, that a lot of people who will be selecting their candidates as delegates to parties are uneducated, unenlightened, in quotes. I'm not saying somebody who has gone to university and come out with a degree that cannot be defended. So where? I'm confused myself, But 5-year, 10-year, 20-year plan, if somebody tells me there's a 10-year plan, it's more realistic. If somebody tells me there's a 2-year plan, I won't agree. Somebody tells me there's a 5-year plan, well, maybe. But until somebody tells me there's a 10-year plan that is enforceable, and that there are laws that have enforced that plan, that nobody can deviate, and that if anybody tries to be a spanner in the work, the person will be cut out. It is until that time that I will know that truly we are ready. I'm sorry if I've been a bubble buster to anybody, but I'm just trying to be as realistic as possible. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
So thanks very much. We really appreciate your feedback. So there's just give me a moment. There's a comment there. We'll be winding the conversation down, and I'm going to read out a comment or two, and I think I'll come to Bobby because I think in delivering good governance, I think technology has a place as well. So there's people, there's technology. And maybe I'll be coming to you to get your views around, maybe what role you see technology playing in helping to improve governance. Something I'd also be keen to, maybe Obene, maybe I'd like to hear your view on, I think it was Bobby that made the comment about strong men building strong institutions. And I think Rwanda is a good example. Rwanda has a strong man. And the West may criticize human rights records and other things like that, but the dynamics within Rwanda are such that the country is moving forward. Maybe there are lessons that we can learn from there, and when I'd like to hear your views on that. But before I do that, okay, I think this is Usenetum. I'm not sure I've read this. Are there legal frameworks for the citizens to take legal action? I think I've read this.
Yes, you read that.
I did, yes. So TS World Company says, concerning Usain's question, if the citizens take this legal action as said, will their voices be heard or their actions taken seriously? Because I think in our country, Nigeria, there's no freedom of speech of the citizens or masses as said in the Constitution. So one of the things that, someone who wants to take legal action against the government may think is, well, the governor appoints the judges. Which judges are going to give judgment against the government? And things like that, I think, maybe discourage people from taking certain actions. Usenetim says, Cross River State legislature watched and even approved the bloated budgets of the governor while the citizens made jest of their creative names while losing sight of the main purpose. Bloated budgets, let's see, while losing sight of the, okay, bloated budgets based on phantom projects are, sorry, my Zoom, I need to just adjust my Zoom in order to be able to see the comments better. Okay, so he says bloated budgets based on phantom projects are the most creative ways of siphoning huge funds that would have been used for more productive projects within the Cross River economy. So I think that's a valid point. Listen, we had budgets of 1.3 trillion, even higher than the budgets of Lagos. Well, exactly what those were about, we're not certain. Okay, Bobby, let's go over to you. Maybe you comment on the role of technology in good governance, and then we'll begin to wind down the conversation.
Thanks a lot. It's interesting to hear all the views here. I'll be very brief about the technology. What we're trying to do when we discuss the Nigerian situation is we're trying to bring out expectations out of people who have nothing to offer us. He has to be blunt. He has to be said like that. And we read the news. I go to contest the governorship of the state, Cross River. You've seen on the national papers how much it will cost me to purchase the PDP, the APC, even the big part, even the small parties will still cost me millions. The ADC, which of them, the NNPP, you name it, it costs millions. Each time the delegate comes for a meeting with an aspirant, the delegate pays transport to come there. I have to give them transport. If he paid 1,000 to come, I'm not giving him 1,000. I'm giving him 5,000 or someone. Each aspirant has to give that. The party has to organize convention. All of these things cost money. So we're talking about a culture which for a long time has just served the purpose of the few. So in order to partake of what the few enjoy, you bring your own share into it, and the few appoint you and anoint you and say, go. We now have a language that we've kind of adopted. We call it consensus. So instead of having an election or a primaries where each one's vote can count so that we can grow in the democracy of voting and making our voices heard through our votes, we're killing that with consensus. So we have a culture. You talked about judiciary. The governor appoints the judges, and the judges serve the purpose of the governor. The things that work in Nigeria are deliberate because that's how the culture wants it to work. If you bring technology into that culture, it only serves to encourage and solidify that culture in another way. I hear people say, oh, we need more educated people in governance. Sorry, I have seen educated people, the best trained, come to Nigeria and use the education they have to set up scams to cream Nigeria's money in ways we never knew were possible before because of education. Technology has even aided. The Accountant General's alleged corruption was the use of technology, a payment system based on technology, to deduct a certain amount of money that accrued up to 80 billion. So, whilst we talk of many things we can do, we have to be honest with ourselves that the culture that we have, not just in the political space, even in the religious space, in the business space, in the cultural space, in the social space, it took a British person to come to Nigeria to say a country that spends more on burial than spends more on education, healthcare, or commerce is a country that is doomed. We don't ask ourselves, why is it that when my dad dies or when my mom dies, is a state burial I want to undertake? There's a culture there. So if I meet a politician, I'm not asking for the money for burial. Looking at all of that, we all know these things. I don't need to tell us. If we're in doubt, we know it. There has to be those who know that the culture needs to shift. They need to understand that I need to bring a different culture. A culture shift is only undertaken by value shift. Only those who have a different value can initiate, implement, and shift a culture for a new one. Let's be honest. The current political actors in our political space, whether Cross River or even Lagos, Jonathan or Johnson mentions Lagos. I reside in Lagos. Lagos is far advanced than southern states when it comes to governance. We have community development associations there. There's a 4th tier of governance. So after local government, we have community development. We do far more, but Lagos still has the same issues, the cultural issues. We who know, who are this minority, who understand that is a cultural issue, what role will we play to ensure that we begin to enable the process, undertake the process that will cause the shift in culture? It is us to undertake. We do academic education. We have to understand the place of informative education. There are things that we can develop as a strategy. Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore was studying in the UK as a law student and developed a plan and spoke to other Singaporeans. Let's go back to Singapore. When he went back, what did he do? He set up a law firm, but also established a political movement that transformed into a political party that had a different culture to what existed currently then. He was a strong man that had a vision that infused that into his people, his brother-in-laws and a few friends, and they took that out into the community and the national space. And from then they began to move the culture that existed to bring in the new culture. So whilst we're saying many things that can happen in Nigeria, let us understand that if some of us commit to the process of saying we want to build something different from what exists, we have a 20-year, 25-year plan. Let us come together and begin to work on those plans to say what we need is a new political mindset. We will come with a different value. And then we'll begin to discuss how we can institute a political movement that will come into a political party, because you can't do that without a political movement, which will enable you over time move from politics into governance. And you will start with a state or local government and showcase what you can do. And then it goes to other states, and eventually you get into Aso Rock and you bring it to a national state. But that process happens behind the scenes, where we're working amongst ourselves and we're working to get other people to understand what we're doing. In the meantime, we can educate the masses to understand what democracy is, to understand the separation of power between legislature, executive, and judiciary, to understand what the local government in your state in Cross River is responsible. Most Nigerians don't know that the primary school is not the primary schools are not the responsibility of federal government or even state government. Primary school is for local governments. State primary healthcare centers. Yes. So we need to help people understand how democracy works. And the more understanding they get, the more informed education they get, informative education, then maybe by 2027, when you and I begin to knock on doors and say, we are not APC, we're not PDP, we're offering something different. We have been meeting frequently, this is what we're offering. Then they will understand what we're bringing to the table. If you ask the average Nigerian, oh, we want this, we want this, we want that, you tell them, okay, cool down. Which do you prefer? Primary school, light, or you want a politician to give you 2 million? You turn around and say, give me my 2 million and go. That's the reality. You can't blame him because 2 million will do a lot for them. So we need to undertake the long-term plan of educating. But here is the thing. I have participated in various movements where 2011 election was over. We started talking about 2015. Talking, negotiating, forming a political movement to begin to educate. And before you know what's happening, the contention for leadership comes in. Oh, I'm the leader. Oh, I'm the leader. And the fight broke up and the group fell apart. What we criticize the other people to do, we're doing there because the average Nigerian doesn't admit that the culture I'm trying to change is inherent in me. So if I don't raise my hands up and say this must change, Lee Kuan Yew said every Singaporean is corrupt. So first thing first was to tell his brother-in-law and his close friends, as we establish this thing, any of us that is caught for corruption, we will punish that person, irrespective of who that person is. It's a commitment I'm making to you. Make that commitment back to me. So when they were building in the infancy of that initiative, they make commitments of something that is different from what is out there. Because when the journey starts, the culture infuses and we become same. So, summary is, those who are passionate about Nigeria begin to look inward and say, am I Nigerian? When I mean that, do I carry the current Nigerian culture? So that we can begin to shift. Is when we begin to change, we think, act, speak differently. And then we can begin to partake with other like minds to move the nation forward and be ready to make concessions. Humble ourselves. Someone wants to be the boss, let them be the boss, as long as we're heading to somewhere we're going to.
Thanks a lot. Okay, I'll just read out a couple of comments and then I would, maybe I'll just ask you to make closing remarks and we'll bring the conversation to a close. So Regina Cliff says, it is said that little drops form an ocean. This forum is quite educative and sensitizing. So I guess my comment is around how far-reaching these discussions are, I guess, in terms of communicating major talking points in sensitizing the populace to demand better governance and even hold themselves accountable in changing their hearts and minds towards creating a culture of integrity, character of good governance, and not only in small groups, but in the community at large. So I think that that's a very good comment, and that's something that the Cross River movement is committed to. So beyond having these conversations, we also engage, and we're actually in the process of engaging with a number of partners, including the the Calabar Chamber of Commerce, and CRESO as well. We want to put certain things on the agenda. So Cross River State is not a state that doesn't have long-term plans. There's a growth and development strategy that has been that exists for the state, and we're going to be working with a number of stakeholders to put the points from that strategy document firmly on the agenda for politicians ahead of 2023 and even beyond, so that the objective there would be to all be speaking, get Cross River speaking with one voice on several different issues that affect us. So that's one of the things that we do beyond beyond the conversations that we have here. So Edwin Uduku says Cross River State should invest in sincerely choosing a selfless leader, infrastructure, education, agriculture, and industrialization. Says the value chain will emerge from all these will be astounding. So I suppose it's not just leader at the level of the governor, but very importantly also who we elect to be council chairman as well. Obene, I will just give you 30 seconds, if you don't mind, to just, maybe make some closing remarks, and then we'll bring the conversation to a close.
All right, thank you. So this has been a very interesting conversation, but I would like to bring out some key points that were that cut across most of the speakers. First was
within 30 seconds, right?
Yes, I'm not going to talk long, but I really think it's important that we say this so that we know we are actually having an impact. Okay, so one of the critical factors is we are not doing enough, and as individuals and also as bodies that are trying to make that change. So that is one. Secondly, I think that even outside of this forum, we need to be the ones to spread this authentication by the masses, validation by the masses. Somebody talked about the issue of paying 100 million and so on and so forth to be able to come in to be just voted at the level of primary. So that is a major constraint in the process of them going. We're talking about 2023 and beyond. This is something that will definitely stifle the plan. If you have a very strong mind, you mentioned that strong man, strong value. How do you bring the strong man and strong value to the table when he can barely, pay his bills just to get into the house where there's this whole inner corporate thing going on? So that is a critical issue. Also, the issue of the judiciary. Now we have a problem there because if you want to take up your rights, take up the issues, there is no way to do that since you are already blocked there. So that should also be brought up sometime during the next or maybe some other sessions we want to take up at the CRM. Then finally, my own comments now is that I think that we should have more of such discussions. I want to thank the other people, Johnson and Bobby. These guys are already on the forefront. But I would like to lean towards the idea of us having to bring in the voices of the masses more. Authentication of the claims of government. People need to speak out in mass recordings, mass polls, just like what you're doing here, polling, stating that's what we as grown-up are trying to do, bringing up issues like where we can say, what do the people actually think about this? Not just somebody rolling out whatever they want to say, and then they expect people to accept it. So authentication is the next line of defense for us as grown-up, and I would like every other person to try and be heard. Even if you think you don't have the 100 million or whatever it is, be heard, be seen, and also try and align yourself with any of the existing bodies like CCRM that are coming up to make a change in society.
Ogbene, thank you very much. And let me also thank all the members of our panel. Thank you, Bobby Udo, for being with us. Thank you, Ogbene Naji. Thank you, Johnson Ebopo, and Kule Lawal, who was on briefly, but I think had to drop off because of some emergency. It's really been nice having you all on this conversation. Really, really good conversation, if you ask me. And I'm sure we'll have you guys, at some point. Would love to hear from you again. But yeah, just to say that this has been brought to you by the Cross River Movement, which is a non-partisan organization that comprises of Cross Riverians and lovers of Cross River State. And we're just looking for how to make our state better. So if you identify with our objectives, you'd like to be part of the movement, please visit our website, www.crossrivermove.com, and sign up. And if you'd like to volunteer, please indicate also as you sign up. You can follow us on social media. We're on YouTube. Editor, if you can share our YouTube channel, please. We would really appreciate it if everyone who's on the call now clicks on the link that is going to be shared shortly. And if you're not already subscribed to our channel, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We have a target that we're trying to reach, and by doing that, it would help us. And you can also share it with your friends and family as well. So you can follow us on Facebook at Cross River Move, on Instagram at crossriver.move, and on Twitter as well at Cross River Move. So our next TCRM conversation comes up in 2 weeks' time, which is Sunday, the 12th of June. And we know that June 12th is a very symbolic day for our country. So we look forward to having you all on that conversation, and we'll be communicating with you on the topic, and we look forward to a fruitful conversation. Thanks very much for joining us. God bless you and enjoy the rest of your weekend.